The silent architect, modern Machiavellian principles for unseen influence. In an era defined by ubiquitous connectivity and an insatiable hunger for public visibility, the very notion of power has undergone a profound transformation. Where once authority might have manifested through overt displays of force or eloquent public pronouncements, today's landscape demands a more nuanced, insidious approach. If Niccolo Machiavelli, the Florentine political philosopher whose treatises on statecraft still resonate through centuries, were to walk amongst us, he would undoubtedly shun the clamor of social media and the fleeting applause of the masses. His genius would not be channeled into best selling books or viral tweets. Instead, he would operate in the shadows, a silent architect of empires, his influence so subtle it would be mistaken for the inexorable hand of destiny. The essence of Machiavelli's timeless wisdom lies not in brute force, but in the meticulous understanding of human psychology and the skillful manipulation of perception. His core insight that men judge more by the eye than by the hand remains chillingly relevant. In a world obsessed with appearances, controlling how others see you is tantamount to controlling their actions. This essay delves into a contemporary interpretation of Machiavellian doctrine, outlining 21 psychological rules for total control reimagined for the complexities of the 21st century. These are not mere quotes, but foundational principles designed to equip the modern strategist with the tools to dominate through invisibility, to become the unseen force pulling the strings behind the curtain. The art of psychological camouflage, mastering perception and underestimation. The journey to unseen influence begins with a fundamental understanding of how perceptions are formed, and more importantly, how they can be engineered. Machiavelli understood that power is safest when hidden, a truth often forgotten in a world where self promotion is a competitive sport. Rule 1: always let them underestimate you. In today's fast paced, credential driven environment, there's an almost compulsive need to prove one's worth, to flaunt achievements, and to assert intellectual dominance. The modern Machiavellian, however, would resist this urge. Instead of making a grand entrance, they would prefer to arrive last, observe meticulously, and speak only when their words carry unexpected weight, a quiet detonation in a room full of noise. This strategic reticence allows others to drop their guard, to reveal their true intentions, and to expose their vulnerabilities. When they believe you pose no threat, they fully unmask themselves, creating the perfect window for a decisive, unanticipated strike. The quiet individual is often misconstrued as harmless or insignificant, a fatal miscalculation for those who fall victim to this calculated deception. The silence of the underestimated is not emptiness. It is a reservoir of unrevealed power waiting for the opportune moment to surge forth. Rule 2: charm is more dangerous than truth. In our hyper-connected, image-obsessed society, the dissemination of truth is often outpaced by the spread of perception. Machiavelli keenly observed that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. This insight is more pertinent now than ever. The contemporary manipulator would not waste time defending their integrity. They would invest every ounce of energy into crafting an illusion of goodness, likability, and trustworthiness. This involves strategic smiles in high stakes meetings, planting seeds of misdirection veiled in pleasantries, and disarming adversaries through an agreeable demeanor. The goal is not genuine goodness, but the belief in goodness. Persuasion cloaked in charm becomes a far more potent weapon than unvarnished honesty. Rather than correcting misperceptions, the modern Machiavellian exploits them, allowing others to crown them a benevolent leader while quietly orchestrating the desired outcome behind the scenes. This involves a calculated dissonance between internal action and external presentation, a subtle dance of appearing to be one thing while consistently acting in alignment with a hidden agenda. Rule 3: Create ambiguity on purpose. While most individuals strive for clarity and understanding in their interactions, the Machiavellian thrives on deliberate obfuscation. To leave people guessing, to oscillate between cold detachment and unexpected generosity, intense focus, and deliberate silence, is to sow seeds of confusion. This confusion paradoxically creates obsession. When individuals cannot categorize or define you, they are compelled to study you, to analyze every word, to overinterpret every silence. They begin to orbit your ambiguity, desperately seeking to make sense of what eludes their grasp. This transforms you from a mere person into a compelling enigma, a puzzle that demands unraveling. As the original text shrewdly notes, the people you control the most are the ones who think about you the most. Therefore, resist the urge to over explain, to clarify, or to fill every conversational void. Speak in riddles, offer enigmatic smiles, and let silence become a fertile ground for curiosity, which in turn blossoms into gravitational influence. The less defined you are, the more mental energy others will expend attempting to define you, binding them to your psychological orbit. Rule 4: Control what they see, hide what you do. The digital age, with its relentless demand for transparency and constant updates, presents both a challenge and an opportunity for the modern Machiavellian. While everyone is busy building their personal brand, broadcasting their progress, and showcasing their achievements, the astute operator moves in the shadows. The moment your moves are publicly known, countermeasures are plotted, alliances are formed, and traps are laid. Machiavelli's wisdom that a prince must always be prepared to act against loyalty, against charity, against humanity, against religion, to preserve the state, translates directly into appearing noble while acting ruthlessly. The modern equivalent dictates that your output should be public, but your input, your true mechanics, must remain strictly private. Never reveal your strategies, explain your systems, or announce your creations before they are fully realized. Let competitors believe you are slow or stagnant, only to surpass them with a silent, devastating efficiency they were utterly unprepared for. Control the narrative, but guard the factory where that narrative is produced. The public facade is merely the tip of an iceberg of unseen machinations. Rule 5: Build a mask, then let it fracture. Perfection in its unblemished form tends to be forgettable. It is the subtle flaw, the carefully orchestrated imperfection, that captivates and holds attention. Machiavelli understood this human fascination with the incomplete. The strategy involves cultivating an image of confidence, poised intelligence, and calm, but then at a calculated moment allow a crack to appear. This might be a sharp, unexpected word, a controlled display of vulnerability, or a sudden, profound insight that hints at a depth far beyond the surface. The psychology behind this is simple: humans don't obsess over what they fully understand. They are drawn to what feels just out of reach. By offering 90% of the story and then strategically going silent, you compel others to chase the elusive remaining 10% for years. The classical Machiavellian advice: a wise ruler should cultivate an appearance of virtue while being ready to act contrary to it, finds its modern application here. Be the beacon of light, but occasionally flash a glimpse of the darkness. Allow them to peer into the abyss, then quickly draw the curtain. This makes you unforgettable, not for the flawless mask, but for the tantalizing mystery it conceals. It creates an insatiable curiosity, turning you into a persistent psychological fixation. The precision of influence, communication as a weapon and alliance as a tool. Beyond controlling external perceptions, the modern Machiavellian masterfully wields communication and manipulates social dynamics to consolidate power. Rule 6: say less than necessary, always. Excessive talkativeness is a tell. It betrays weakness, a desperate need for validation, a fear of being misunderstood, or an emotional dependency on clarity. The individual who speaks with surgical precision, halting just before over explaining, invariably dominates the room. Machiavelli did not speak to be understood in the conventional sense. He spoke to create distance, to wield words like blades rather than comforting blankets. In any high stakes interaction, a negotiation, a disagreement, a moment of acute tension, a single carefully chosen sentence, perhaps two followed by a profound silence, is far more impactful than a deluge of words. This silence becomes the crucible of fear. What do they know? Why aren't they reacting? What are they planning? The silence forces others to project their own anxieties and suspicions onto you, effectively writing a narrative in their heads where you are the formidable, inscrutable antagonist. In the realm of power, the objective is not to satisfy or impress, but to control the rhythm of thought. The true mystery, the real power, resides in the unspoken spaces between words and the pregnant pauses that compel others to lean in to guess and to sweat. Rule 7: blur the line between threat and ally. In an age obsessed with categorizing allegiances, who is with us, who is against us, who is safe, and who is a threat, the Machiavellian refuses to provide such comforting certainty. A master of this rule would dine with adversaries, publicly praise rivals, and even defend those they secretly plan to eliminate. One, because the perception of danger triggers defensive preparations and active resistance. The perception of neutrality, or even friendship, however, lulls targets into a state of complacency, making them vulnerable. As Machiavelli famously stated, the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. This demands a dual nature appearing benign while possessing the capacity for ruthless action. Compliment an enemy's idea just before outmaneuvering them. Agree with a critic's point before silently engineering their replacement. Maintain a veneer of passivity until your calculated absence or sudden move becomes a weapon. Be warm, supportive, and disarming until the precise moment of action, by which time any counter-reaction is too late. The modern application is clear speak, less smile, more maintain a neutral facade, and then remove obstacles while they are still struggling to determine if you were ever a threat at all. Rule 8: make them feel safe right before you take power. The most effective way to neutralize an opponent is not through direct confrontation, but by disarming them through a manufactured sense of security. The modern Machiavellian would dedicate time to studying their target's behavioral patterns, subtly mimicking their language, praising their ideas, and disagreeing only softly, never making them feel as if they are losing ground. The target is made to believe they are guiding you, influencing you, or even winning you over. This cultivation of trust, it is paramount. Once the target feels completely secure, believing you are on their side and invested in their success, the decisive, quick, and clean move is made. By the time betrayal is registered, the Machiavellian is already in the seat of power, leaving the victim disoriented and powerless. Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. This adage underpins the rule: tell people what they desperately want to hear, show them what they wish to see, and then seize what they never imagined you would touch, all while maintaining a reassuring smile. Rule 9: make people dependent, then remove yourself. True dominance for Machiavelli was not achieved through threats, but through the cultivation of dependence. Instead of direct intimidation, the modern master of influence would offer help in ways that subtly, silently, and incrementally create a web of reliance. This might involve teaching a unique skill, solving an intractable problem, or providing a stability that was previously lacking. The goal is to become irreplaceable without ever explicitly demanding recognition or control. Once this essential role is established, the Machiavellian would then withdraw, not in anger or with vengeful intent, but simply by creating an absence. Nothing cripples individuals faster than the sudden removal of something they have grown addicted to. Men are kept honest only by necessity. When they are free to act, they are dishonest. The Machiavellian becomes the necessary illusion, the person whose value is only truly understood once they are gone. This strategic withdrawal creates a void, forcing others to confront their profound need and spend years trying to fill the space you once occupied, thus making you unforgettable, not through presence, but through absence. Rule 10: weaponize the favor. While most people offer help to garner likability or goodwill, the Machiavellian offers assistance with the specific intention of creating leverage. A favor once granted is never truly forgotten, not by the giver. The collection of this debt is not forceful, but subtly pervasive. The recipient is left with a lingering sense of indebtedness, a feeling of psychological imbalance that they are compelled to rectify. The strategy involves offering a shortcut, a solution, or an advantage, then subtly pulling back without making an explicit demand. The imbalance is left to fester until the recipient, driven by an internal psychological imperative, begins to repay the debt in the form of loyalty, reciprocal favors, crucial information, or even outright submission. If the debt seems to be forgotten, a subtle, almost innocent reminder: remember that time I, is often enough to prick their pride and reestablish the power dynamic. Favors, when wielded with patience, become psychological chains, and the longer they remain unacknowledged, the heavier their psychological weight becomes. Rule 11: manufacture loyalty by letting them betray others for you. Conventional wisdom suggests loyalty is earned through kindness and mutual respect. Machiavelli, however, understood a darker, more potent truth. The surest way to secure someone's loyalty is to compel them to compromise their integrity for your benefit. This is not about coercion, but about creating the opportunity. You don't force betrayal, you merely leave the door slightly ajar. Allow them to share forbidden information, to subtly bend a rule in your favor, or to speak ill of someone to gain your approval. The key is never to explicitly ask or pressure. Once they walk through that door, they are bound to you not by admiration, but by complicity. The human psyche is wired to protect that for which it has compromised. When individuals betray others on your behalf, they are investing a piece of their moral fabric in you. The deeper their investment, the less they can afford to lose you, as their own compromised position becomes inextricably linked to your continued influence. This is how the modern Machiavellian forges alliances not through charismatic appeals, but through strategic entanglement. Rule 12: break alliances from the inside. Machiavelli's brilliance extended beyond individual manipulation to the dismantling of entire networks. His methods was not confrontation, but erosion. Instead of directly attacking an alliance, he would infiltrate it, planting insidious seeds of doubt, subtle misalignments in values, and quiet suspicions. The principle, he who causes another to become powerful ruins himself, guides this action. The strategy involves identifying the strongest bond within the group and then slowly poisoning it with suspicion. A whispered, "I heard he said something about you," or a subtly pointed, "Have you noticed how she never really defends you?" is often all it takes. The goal is not to destroy the alliance yourself, but to compel them to self destruct from within. The fear of betrayal, once ignited, becomes a self fulfilling prophecy, causing the entire structure to collapse without a single direct blow. The Machiavellian merely provides the catalyst, allowing internal paranoia to do the destructive work. The orchestration of power, leveraging psychology and masterminding outcomes. The advanced practitioner of Machiavellian principles moves beyond mere influence, actively orchestrating events and controlling outcomes through deep psychological insight and strategic action. Rule 13: reflect their insecurities back at them gently. To achieve unthinking obedience without overt control, the Machiavellian subtly taps into the wellspring of human insecurity. This is not done through insults or criticism, but through soft, carefully timed comments that appear to be supportive, but in fact confirm their deepest self doubts. "You're really brave, especially for someone who's not used to attention. You always seem to pull through even when people don't take you seriously. You're doing great, even if your confidence doesn't always show it." These statements, seemingly empathetic, trigger a profound resonance with their internal pain points. Once you've established yourself as the singular individual who truly gets them, who sees their hidden struggles, they will emotionally attach to you, defer to your judgment, and begin to move under your emotional gravity. Machiavelli understood that fear and insecurity are far more potent than direct threats, as threats trigger defenses, while insecurities open the inner gates. Once inside, you become the only voice they implicitly trust, the source of validation they desperately seek. Rule 14: never be the one holding the knife. In every act of betrayal, every crucial decision, every ruthless removal, the Machiavellian adheres to one inviolable rule: let others execute the dirty work. The master orchestrates the outcome, whispers the ideas, subtly influences decisions, but never steps into the direct spotlight of action. When an individual needs to be cut off, it is framed as their own inherent disloyalty coming to light. When a rival must be removed, They are subtly provoked into self destruction. When chaos is desired, both sides are fed carefully curated information, and the orchestrator steps away before the fire ignites. The logic is simple: if you are seen as the executioner, you accumulate enemies. If you are seen as the inevitable alternative after someone else's failure, you gain followers. This is the ultimate Machiavellian masterpiece, the illusion of clean hands. You control every variable, manipulate every player, but no one can prove your direct involvement. Even if suspected, you are already occupying the position of the fallen. Rule 15: say nothing and let them reveal everything. In any dynamic, the true power does not reside with the loudest voice or the most verbose. It rests with the one who says nothing and observes everything. Silence for the Machiavellian is a potent weapon disguised as passivity. In today's cacophony of podcasts, rants, and digital noise, the individual who refuses to broadcast, who embraces strategic silence, holds an undeniable advantage. Instead of filling the silence, they allow others to choke on it. When insulted, they respond with silence. When asked for an opinion, they smile and let the other person continue talking. When provoked for an emotional reaction, they blink, remain quiet, and offer no outward response. This deliberate silence forces the other person to speak more to fill the uncomfortable void. And the more they speak, the more they unwittingly reveal their doubts, their true intentions, their deepest weak spots. There is no need for interrogation. They will divulge everything simply to escape the silence you have weaponized. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception, and silence is deception's most elegant, devastating form. Rule 16: be unpredictable, but only when it matters. The Machiavellian is not erratic, but possesses a calculated unreliability at critical junctures. Predictability breeds manipulation. If your reactions are always known, your tempo controlled, your responses under stress charted, or your tendency to take the high road anticipated, you become a target. But if sometimes you forgive, and sometimes you vanish, if sometimes you speak, and sometimes you let them drown in silence, if sometimes you engage and sometimes you watch them implode, then you instill genuine fear. This fear stems not from aggression, but from unreadability. Machiavelli noted that men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. But the most profound fear is born from uncertainty. The individual who cannot be predicted cannot be prepared for making them a formidable and perpetually unsettling force. Rule 17: make your presence felt even in absence. Psychological domination does not necessitate constant physical presence. The true mark of influence is when your impact is felt most acutely when you are not around. This is achieved by becoming the unspoken standard, the pervasive reference point, the lingering shadow in every conversation. Others second guess their choices, remembering your past corrections. They hesitate to celebrate victories, wondering what you would have done. They are wary of trusting others, fully recalling the precision of your judgment. This is a form of psychological branding built not on content, but on energy. You imprint your presence through how you conduct yourself, while present, measured, observant, controlled, surgical. When you are gone, they don't forget you. They compare everyone else to you. Machiavelli wouldn't need to fire people directly. He would cultivate such a powerful, indelible memory that even in your absence, They would instinctively continue to operate by your unspoken rules. Rule 18: Never threaten. Let fear do the work. Direct threats breed immediate resistance. The Machiavellian therefore never needs to utter the words, "I will destroy you." Instead, they cultivate an environment where others wonder if they might. This wondering, this potent psychological pressure, is far more damaging than any explicit verbal threat. In modern application, you don't say, "I could expose you." You simply pause meaningfully when they lie and watch them squirm. You don't say, "I'll ruin your chances." You make one carefully placed phone call, then say nothing further. You don't say, "You're done." You simply disappear from their world, letting them panic about your next unrevealed move. Why? Because fear based on imagination is infinitely more powerful than fear based on concrete information. Once individuals fear what you might do, they will actively work for your approval, if only to avoid finding out the true extent of your capabilities. Rule 19: Delay your revenge until it becomes devastating. Machiavelli disdained quick, impulsive retaliation. His philosophy embraced observation patience and allowing the offense to fester until the timing for reprisal was absolutely perfect. Injuries should be inflicted all at once so that their ills savor may be less. Benefits should be granted little by little. This meant that when wronged, the Machiavellian would not react. They would study their adversary, allow them to relax into a false sense of security, and let them believe they had escaped consequences. Then, at a moment least expected, the move would be clean, calculated, and absolute. Revenge in this context is not merely about punishment, it is about ultimate control. Instant reaction cedes the tempo to the opponent. Delayed revenge, however, forces the adversary to live in perpetual paranoia. They cannot fully enjoy their victories, they cannot sleep soundly, and every silent moment becomes a source of dread. This simmering fear, this psychological torment, inflicts far more damage than any explosive outburst ever could. The legacy of control, becoming a system beyond the self, the pinnacle of Machiavellian power, transcends individual presence, embedding influence into the very fabric of systems and collective consciousness. Rule 20: Become a system, not a man. Machiavelli never sought to be merely liked. He aspired to be respected, not through superficial charm, but through a profound structural indispensability. The modern iteration of this principle means transcending the identity of a mere individual and becoming a pervasive network, an overarching idea, an unwavering standard, a strategic approach intrinsically woven into the operational fabric of others. This involves training others to adopt your way of thinking, making yourself essential within complex systems that no one else fully comprehends. It means embedding your voice, your methodology, and your strategic directives into decisions that echo long after your physical departure. Even if others resent you, they find themselves incapable of functioning without your established frameworks. This is the genesis of true legacy. You are not merely feared while present. You are remembered as an integral part of the systems they cannot delete, an enduring psychological control that persists through institutional memory and ingrained habit. Rule 21: Make them afraid to speak your name. The ultimate manifestation of power is not public recognition, but a haunting, pervasive presence that makes direct mention of your name an act of trepidation. The modern Machiavellian would be the unnamed reference, the implied consequence. You know who I mean. Don't end up like him. You know how that move played out last time. They wouldn't dare utter your name, for the very act of naming you would feel like invoking a force beyond their comprehension. You wouldn't trend on social media. You would linger in the collective subconscious. You wouldn't win arguments through debate. You would shift the entire atmosphere of a room. You become the spectral presence they fear bringing up because everyone else present already understands the profound, unseen consequences. In conclusion, if Niccolo Machiavelli were alive today, his strategies would not be about public spectacle or chasing fleeting popularity. He would operate from the hidden depths of power structures, shaping narratives with a smile and a strategic silence. He would be the insidious voice in your head, whispering, "Don't respond, don't reveal, let them speak first, and most crucially, don't chase respect. Position yourself so they cannot breathe without it." This is the true path to victory, not through fleeting fame or deafening noise, but through the cultivation of an indelible, undeniable legacy of control that no force can dismantle.